main topic this week is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Couldn't really figure out what to watch this week. There was a lot of back and forth. We settled on this one because it recently premiered on Prime. Um, did you guys both watch it on Prime?
I did.
I watched it on MGM Plus.
See, now what does that cost you?
I have it as part of my subscription, so I don't pay extra for it.
Okay. All right. So MGM Plus, Amazon Prime. I saw it on a plane about a month and a half ago. So I had to do a little catch up. I watched a couple of YouTube videos and just read some stuff just to refresh my memory on the plot and things like that. I also watched it on a very small screen. Um,
I have, what was it, 4 inches right in front of your face?
Yeah, but you know what? I just remember really enjoying it when I came back. I think our first pod I mentioned it that I really liked it. I was laughing a lot of the time. When this movie initially came out, I kind of just dismissed it as another like not Marvel or off-brand Marvel kind of movie. It's like here's another brand or property that they're just trying to milk with this audience just by making like a little fantasy movie off this Dungeons and Dragons property. So I dismissed it, and then I just kind of saw it just because I was on a 5 hour flight, and I was like, this movie's almost 3 hours, so that'll be like half the flight if I just get through this. But anyway, I really liked it. The Rotten Tomato score 91 fresh, and then 93 audience, which I think again goes to the point where like if this type of movie is 93 audience, it satisfies that core base because those guys go in hard, bro. They all get together on their Reddit or 4chan and they make sure that they review these things collectively. But then the critics review is a 91, so that tells me like technically and story wise, like structurally, like this is a movie that works as well. Um, what first take, Pedro? What did you think of the movie? You're on mute.
I liked it off the bat. Uh, I like what you mentioned. That's one of the things that drew me in. That it's kind of like a one-off of this property. That's like a board game. I didn't think that was a bad thing. I thought that was a good thing because you don't really see movies like that anymore. Movies like that come around every once in a while because it's almost like, oh, everything's been done. Everything that's can be turned into a movie or a series has been done, and you come along and Dungeons and Dragons has been around for so long, and it's like, oh, someone made a movie because you can just make up these characters and put it in a fantasy world, and then just
Hmm.
put the copyright holder can just put their name on it. Um,
You
but
liked
yeah,
it
the
coming out of it?
yeah, yeah. So I like the idea of it going into it. I like the movie itself. Watching it, the first thing I got, like, upon the first couple minutes of watching it, I got like Princess Bride vibes.
Yeah, a
It
lot.
was
I've
that
been
kind of movie,
hearing a
or
lot. Yeah.
yeah, it just it was just like a feel good comedy on the side, some fantasy stuff, not to be taken itself too seriously, and I hope I hope that they can branch off of this and make some sequels to this
I'm sure
because
they
it
can. I
seems
don't.
it seems like it seems like all the pieces are there. They can follow different characters' stories or just bring up new characters because Dungeons and Dragons isn't centered on one character
Like
or
character
anything.
or
Yeah,
story,
it's
right?
just a fantasy world. So
Yeah. Scott, what was your first impression? You're on mute.
My first impression, I knew nothing about Dungeons and Dragons. I know it's a game, but I wasn't quite sure if you could enlighten me. What is the purpose of the game when one plays it?
Um, I'm not the best person to say. I've never played D&D. Um, so it's a fantasy game where each character basically role plays. Where I'm sorry, each person will role play as a character. So you can be like a swordsman, maybe a sorcerer or wizard, or like a warrior, barbarian type.
and I think that's where they got the different characters and their traits from in the movie.
Right. So these are characters that you, and then there's like a game master who's is like he makes the rules. He's like also like a narrator. And he like something to that effect. Sorry, I don't really know. Pedro, that's kind of it, right? Uh,
Yeah,
it's a
I've
role
never
playing
played.
game
I've never played it, so I can't
because we
speak
were
on the
cool
details.
guys. We were outside on skateboards and bikes. Um,
Speak for yourself. I was not on skateboards, maybe bikes, but not skateboards. No.
I don't. I honestly, I don't think the game has anything to do with the movie itself. It's just the property holders and just slap that name on it because it's familiar.
So I did after the movie. I was going to mention this later, but because you said that after the movie, I liked it a lot, and I wanted to continue engaging with it. So I went on YouTube and I looked at one of those like Easter egg videos that just pointed to all the Easter eggs that someone who's familiar with the movie would pick up on because I didn't get anything, and there was a bunch. So that just told me like they were really thoughtful about putting this together, um, and giving this sort of reward to people who play the game and like little insights. Oh, this little token that's like in the background when they break into that hall where they steal the thing. Like those are all things from the game or universe or whatever. So I thought that was cool that they included that stuff. Um, so the story is kind of like I can't remember any of the characters' names. I don't have IDB pulled up, but basically it's about a father trying to redeem himself. He's trying to reconnect with his daughter and bring his wife back to life. That's basically the core of the movie and the driving force for these guys to get together. Chris Pines plays the lead. What's his
I
name?
believe Edgin, I believe is the
Edgin.
name. Yeah.
He's so good. I was cracking up the whole time. He's so good. Like they're all like, there's just like great chemistry, banter between the all four of them the whole time. Um, it the movie, like Pedro said, it like it doesn't take itself seriously, but it also doesn't make fun of itself, kind of like Marvel movies do nowadays, especially like something like Thor, for example, which is like a parody of itself. This movie didn't really do that. It was pretty smart. I thought the plot was. I reach watched the trailers. They give away the plot of the movie. So I'm glad I didn't watch those, um, because the movie you think is about him getting his daughter back from Hugh Grant's character, but then there's also like this villainous druid kind of character always lurking and plotting in the background, and then she becomes the real villain. Um, I mean, yeah, you could say that for see it coming from a mile away, but still nice when you see it with fresh eyes. Uh, any other thoughts from you guys, Scott?
It was good to see a fantasy movie that isn't trying to be serious. Like Vikings and
Lord of the
violence
Rings
and
type,
blood and Game of Thrones or these types of The Witcher or whatever. I don't know, but just something that isn't trying to take itself too serious or
right?
draw like a serious atmosphere to this fantasy world, because it's been a while since at least since I've seen a sort of comedic action, a comedic adventure fantasy movie.
Probably
That's why I
since
got.
Robin Hood Men in Tights was
That's
like
why I got. That's why I
that's
got those vibes from those throwback movies, like what you just mentioned, or Princess Bride, or
yeah,
whatever those other movies were.
What I really liked is that there was a part where Chris, I think the character name was Zank. He was walking and there was a rock far in the distance, and Chris Pine's character was like, "How is he going to navigate the rock? Is he going to walk around it or is he going to walk over it?" And he's
Yeah,
walking, and he just like with no effort just walks over. He's like, "Oh, he walked over it."
yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. I think that was the point of making fun of video games. That my favorite part of video games is when someone will be talking and they're like looking like this, talking to the character, and the character's like right here, but they're talking like this, and like they're oblivious to what direction to look at, and they're just giving this whole lecture about some kind of situation,
yeah,
some
yeah.
kind of anecdote. That's what it brought me into with Zank doing that walk. But the scariest part for me, which I kind of like felt like I wanted to go through, is the graveyard scene. That sort of just too much for me.
Too much how?
I don't know. I just felt that went on for too long, and I kind
Okay.
of saw where that was going. It just felt like, all right, you're gonna like ask a bunch of questions, and then you're gonna eventually move on.
Yeah,
I could have
I
edited that out.
I like that. I like
It
that
got old.
scene.
It got
I'm
old
not.
quickly for me.
I did like that. It wasn't like the smartest joke, but I don't know. It made me chuckle when he kept asking questions, but not directed at the dead guy, and he kept using up
Yes,
the questions. it's,
yes. It
it's
was
just like
like
a certain level of silliness that kind of gets me to chuckle.
it's like taking it to the level of Aladdin having certain asking the
The
genie so many
wishes.
wishes, and it's like no, that's a wish that counts.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good comparison. I'm trying to see. Oh, it. So the movie opens with them in jail. Them meaning. Sorry, let me pull up. Hold that.
I did like that scene where Chris Pine's character was like kept on going. Is the other guy coming in? Is the other guy
Yeah.
coming in? Keep going. They're like, keep going. Wait, is he? Wait, this is a good time for me to wait. No, 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 keep going.
Yeah, and then the guy
Yeah,
just
I like
shows
when
up.
movies do that
But they
when
were
they
so
kind of
calm. They were so
they
calm when they kept on
yeah
saying it. Like video game characters, like they have no, they don't get upset at all.
And then the guy finally shows up. He's like this big humanoid bird creature, and they just like grab him, throw him out the window, and use him to fly away. It's just
And then of course they're like they were going no matter what they were going to let him out anyway. It's like right after
oh
he
yeah,
pulled
yeah,
out.
yeah. That's right. They're gonna release them anyway, and I think they
Mm-hmm.
killed that bird guy. If I'm, oh no, he comes back
No, the
later.
bird. Yeah, the bird is back, but he winds up being used for the same. I don't know where this bird is. It's just because he always winds up coming in late.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he's like at a.
I think he's one of the people on the like one of the judges or something on the
I know, but
panel.
why is he late?
Right.
That was like the later in the movie. He's late. I don't know why. Maybe he's like at getting his nails done or something. I don't know. But he's like wait late from a doctor's appointment or something.
There was also that. Okay, I was gonna say something, but it reminded me. So the cast includes Michelle Rodriguez, Hugh Grant, the guy from Detective Pikachu who plays the sorcerer, who's great, and then the girl from It. She was in It Part One and Two. She plays like a shapeshifter. But Hugh Grant is really good as like the jerk scoundrel kind of like sleazy villain in this. He's hilarious.
That's his type of role.
Yeah,
That's his
he's so
type of
He's
role now. Like
he's
he always gets cast in that. You cast him in that, and you'll get away with it because
he's no longer that Notting Hill character, that love interest. That's no longer his ballpark anymore.
but he's good at that. He really thrives. And this one is good because he's a kind of an asshole, but he's also funny. And then Michelle Rodriguez, who's someone who I just never liked in any role, um, but I feel like she kind of killed it in this role as like the barbarian. She's kind of like the warrior of the crew because she always ever since the show Lost, where I was originally introduced to her, she always plays like this tough girl of the crew. I'm gonna tell the men how to do it, and she's tough. But in this one, she is tough. She's the toughest one, but she's also really, really funny, and really has like the heart of the movie because of her relationship with the kid, with the guy Edwin's daughter. So I thought she was great. And then there's a scene towards the end where we go back to her home and we see like her ex-husband. Do you guys remember that scene where she
yeah,
has
that
like
was
the
great.
heart to heart with the ex-husband and he's like spoiler, it's Bradley Cooper, but he's like mini. He's like a tiny guy.
The mini dwarf version of Bradley Cooper, and
Yeah.
I was laughing throughout that whole scene when they revealed it because at first you're like they show him from a wide shot and you're like, hold on, is that Brad Cooper? And then it's like, oh yeah, that's him, and then you just laughed about the scene.
Yeah, he's like sitting in a chair and his legs are dangling. And she's sitting across from him. And then we meet like his new wife, and she's just like this giant
He's like
warrior
a
chick.
bigger barbarian, stronger woman. That's so funny.
I wonder if Hugh Grant, the reason why he got the part, I guess he had the part beforehand before he did the show Undoing for HBO, but it's kind of the same type of part. Not
Yeah,
necessarily he had more, he was
there's
more
shades of
charismatic
it for
in the
sure.
movie,
Yeah,
but he definitely had that dark side of him.
yeah, yeah. I agree. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of everything I gotta say. It definitely exceeded my expectations in general. I wasn't even gonna see this movie, to be honest. It just sort of happened. But
See,
I
that's the beauty of making movies widely available to stream on
Yeah,
a big platform, because we mentioned before that it came out
who's clicking?
maybe it came out maybe like what, like a month or so ago or 2 months ago on Paramount Plus. I don't remember anyone, getting excited about that, but then they released it on Amazon Prime over Labor Day weekend, and you know that's what
Yeah,
caught me. So
it got the second wave.
I'm
My
sure it caught a lot of other people.
my tentacles critique of it is that whenever they had any special effects or animals that were animated, I found myself looking down because there was areas that there was sand, and like like the feet would hit the ground, but then there was never any remnants of their feet hitting the ground. It's like, oh, I'm gonna pounce on the ground, and then whatever they area they pounce, it's just like it never their foot prop on the ground never existed prior to that. It just like the details of the special effects. It worked, but I think it was kind of done in a way where they didn't go all out.
Hmm.
But there are certain details that like Pixar already has figured out from Toy Story 2. They've learned from that. But for the purpose of it, it's it was good overall. Sometimes there was the depth of field felt weird that the animated character was in focus where the person that was farther into the picture was at the same focal length. But overall, I was able to look past that. It was entertaining, but not everyone looks at those details of the cinematography.
Yeah, I think I've read a lot about that. About how it's a common critique of the film is the bad CGI. I couldn't really tell seeing it on a 4-inch screen on an airplane, but I
Everything
think
looks great that size.
I think that's also like an industry trend right now, where you see it with the Flash. You saw it with not Aquaman, Ant Man, where just and it's widely known that the VFX industry, they're non-union, they're all burned out, they're all um, you know kind of not, I don't want to say they're complaining, but they're sort of speaking about what their lives are like these days.
I,
So
I
I'm
didn't
not
notice
surprised.
I didn't notice the CG being bad in this movie like I've noticed it with the recent Marvel movies, and obviously with the Flash and like the babies falling off the building. Like
That was the worst.
that was terrible, but I didn't notice it in this one, so I'm not sure.
What I say with special effects,
And
right?
I do notice that because I know for a fact the recent Marvel movies and the Flash are great examples of how bad CG has gotten. And it's a
You,
weird situation where like 4 years ago CG was great, like you would see CG on like Infinity War or whatever. And then like all of a sudden like we regressed like 10 years in CG.
Yeah, it's
usually
because they don't
the
have
remedy
time.
the remedy usually is that they if there's something they want to not spend the time, they just if something's falling, they just overly blur it out. It's like, wait, why did you blur that out? You got 4K cameras or whatever. You
Yeah.
should be
I
able to
didn't know I
full
didn't notice
resolution.
it, so I didn't think that was a negative to the movie just because I didn't notice it though.
All right. I didn't notice it. I'm gonna watch it again. I think probably this week, just to get a better viewing experience. Any other final thoughts on the film before we cut loose today?
Just fingers crossed that they make a sequel to this or something along the lines, or that we see, more properties that are based on like board games or something that hasn't been done just turned into a movie and done
Yeah,
well.
and hopefully they keep the same directors and whoever was responsible for putting this one together. All right, we'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for checking out the podcast. We'll see you on the next one.